As darkness looms over the Pacific, the Philippines braces for another catastrophic blow. Nearly 1 million people have been forced to evacuate from their homes as Super Typhoon Fung-wong, a monster storm with a nearly countrywide reach, churns ominously toward the nation's eastern coast. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration, PAGASA, reported winds reaching 185 kilometers per hour, 115 miles per hour near the typhoon center, with gusts up to 230 kilometers per hour, strong enough to rip rooftops off homes and uproot trees. Authorities have declared a nationwide state of readiness, suspending classes and government operations across Luzon Island, including the bustling capital Manila, where almost 300 domestic and international flights have been canceled. The usually vibrant city has turned eerily quiet. Streets are empty, shops are shuttered, and residents have stocked up on food and water in anticipation of days without power. The small island province of Catanduanes stands directly in Fung-wong's path and is already being pounded by wind and torrential rain. Storm surges have sent waves crashing over coastal roads, while flash floods have begun to submerge low-lying communities. Civil Defense Deputy Administrator Rafaelito Alejandro confirmed that 916,863 citizens had been evacuated, describing the situation as extremely critical. Locals recount scenes of chaos as they scrabbled to safety. The waves started roaring around 7 in the morning, said Edson Casarino, a resident of Virac, the provincial capital. When the waves hit the seawall, it felt like the ground itself was shaking. Now the rain is pouring heavily, and I can hear the wind whistling like a scream. Experts warn that with its massive span, Fung-wong's impact will not be confined to the coast. The storm's outer bands stretch hundreds of kilometers, promising relentless rain, howling winds, and possible landslides across multiple regions. For the Philippines, still reeling from the devastation of Typhoon Kalmaegi just days earlier, the arrival of this new super typhoon feels like a cruel repetition of nature's wrath, a grim reminder that the storm season is far from over. By Sunday night, Catanduanes Island had descended into chaos. What began as heavy rainfall at dawn had turned into a full-blown catastrophe by dusk. Super Typhoon Fung-wong unleashed its fury with unrelenting winds that roared like jet engines, tearing through rooftops and snapping power lines. Entire neighborhoods plunged into darkness as communication networks collapsed, isolating communities from the rest of the country. Streets that once bustled with activity were now rivers of muddy water, littered with debris, fallen trees, and shattered glass. In the provincial capital, Virac, verified videos from AFP showed a centuries-old church half-submerged, floodwaters reaching halfway up its main entrance. Inside, frightened residents huddled together, praying as the walls shuddered under the force of the wind. "It's like the sea has come to swallow our town," one witness said through tears. "The sound outside is deafening, metal clanging, roofs ripping, dogs howling. It feels endless." Further west, in the Bicol region of southern Luzon, the destruction was spreading rapidly. In Ginabatan, home to around 80,000 people, entire streets had transformed into torrents of floodwater, sweeping away cars, furniture, and even livestock. Rescue teams struggled to move through the rising current, hampered by blinding rain and powerful gusts that made even standing impossible. Officials warned that rivers in Albay and Camarines Sur were nearing critical levels, threatening to overflow and inundate more towns overnight. Meteorologists reported that some regions could see up to 200 millimeters, 8 inches, with possible landslides in mountainous areas. Scientists emphasize that warming oceans are fueling stronger storms like Fung-wong, while higher global temperatures allow the atmosphere to hold more moisture, turning every tropical cyclone into a potential disaster. By late evening, thousands had taken refuge in makeshift evacuation centers, schools, gymnasiums, and churches converted into shelters of last hope. Children cried as the wind shrieked outside, and volunteers handed out blankets and warm food under flickering candlelight. Across Luzon, emergency sirens wailed into the night, a haunting chorus accompanying the storm's rampage. For many Filipinos, this was not just another typhoon. It was a battle for survival against nature's unrelenting power.
Mbak na, teman. Mbak. Sa tindahan ko, mbak na. Bilis oh. Malabaw na so tukawan sa waiting shed. May mbak na sa kupon.
Just days before Fung-wong's approach, Typhoon Kalmaegi had already left the Philippines shattered. The storm, one of the deadliest of 2025, tore through the Visayas region with torrential rains and flash floods that destroyed bridges, homes, and entire communities. Government figures confirmed at least 224 deaths and 109 people missing, while thousands remained displaced and living in evacuation centers. The images of destruction in Cebu and Negros Islands, cars floating down flooded highways, concrete homes reduced to rubble, families wading through chest-deep waters were still fresh when the nation was forced to brace for another blow. As Super Typhoon Fung-wong gathered strength over the Pacific, rescue operations in the central Philippines had to be abruptly suspended. "We cannot risk the safety of our rescuers," said disaster response official Mira Davin, her voice heavy with exhaustion. "We don't want them to become the next casualties." The decision underscored the grim reality facing the country, a relentless sequence of storms striking faster than communities can recover. In Sorsogon, along southern Luzon's coast, terrified residents sought shelter in churches and public halls. "The waves near my house are enormous," said Maxine Duggan, who had fled her seaside home hours earlier. "I can hear the wind screaming through the streets. We can only pray the roof holds." For millions like Maxine, the trauma of Kalmaegi had barely begun to heal, yet the threat of Fung-wong reignited the fear of losing everything again. The Philippine government, still mobilizing relief for Kalmaegi's victims, now faces a logistical nightmare. Strained resources, overflowing evacuation centers, and disrupted communication lines. International aid agencies have pledged support, but roads remain impassable, airports closed, and weather conditions too dangerous for air transport. Meteorologists and climate scientists warn that these back-to-back disasters are not coincidences, but the new face of the climate crisis. Warmer seas feed stronger typhoons, while rapid atmospheric changes intensify rainfall and extend storm durations. The Philippines, located along the world's most active typhoon belt, stands on the front line of this global emergency. As night falls over a battered nation, millions sit in darkness, some in shelters, others clinging to what remains of their homes, hoping the storm will pass. For them, Fung-wong is more than just another typhoon. It is a painful reminder that the cycle of destruction and recovery has become the country's tragic rhythm, a test of endurance for a people who have learned to rebuild time and time again from the wreckage left behind.